Hello everybody, my name's Major Total War, and welcome as we rank the factions on AGO from best to maybe not the best. We've got 5 ranking tiers, if you like, that we're going to be putting the factions into. We'll start with the bottom, because I think that is the only way is up. Not singing the song. The bottom tier is the tomato scene tier, everyone's worst scene from the Return of the King, right? The Denethor choosing... It gives me, horrible. So that's the bin tier. There might be a faction in there. There might not be. I don't know. Watch the video. Hopefully you'll see. The next tier up, that's the Bilbo scare tier from the Fellowship of the Ring. That bit where he's like, ah. Still, I remember watching that for the first time, and it still freaks me out now, like 20 years later or something. Stresses me out. Don't like that scene. Sometimes I try and skip over it. You know, when you're like, oh, cut like 10 seconds. Even though I know what's happening, it still scares me. I don't know why. The next tier up, that's the meh tier. It's like, meh, they're alright. You know, they've got some decent traits. They've got some drawbacks. But they're like an okay faction. The second off top tier is the Boromir tier. I was going to put Boromir top, but he was slightly flawed at the beginning of the Fellowship. Particularly in the film. I know the books, he's a bit more of a noble character. But I thought I'd put him as the A. He's the equivalent of A in the tier maker world. The top tier, that's the second breakfast tier. That's the top. That's the Uber tier. This is the tier where you want to. That's where the good factions are going to go. The criteria, if you like, that I've made to rank the factions, because for people who've watched my channel, I know I am a big Dunland fan. I know a lot of people aren't Dunland fans, but I'm going to try and be as neutral as possible when I'm ranking the factions, because there's some factions I don't like so much, and there are some factions that I do like more than others. I have played as every single faction on AGO, not for any length of time for some of them, but I am going to try and rank them as neutral as possible. The criteria that I'm going to be using is replayability, so things like scripts, things that you choose, you could choose differently. I do think replayability is a big part of who you're going to play as. The overall roster, the strength of the units as a whole, as a faction, I do think should come into account, especially with who you're facing as the enemy. So if you're a strong faction fighting a weak enemy, then you're going to be bumped up higher than a weaker, more underdog or horde-like faction who's fighting uber units, if you like. I do think the roster as a whole should be considered. The economy of most factions, I think, as well, is something I have put down in my notes. It is slightly unfair, I think, because evil, in quote mark, factions tend to suffer more than good factions for economy. I think Isengard maybe might be in the exception, but as a whole, Orc factions tend to struggle more with economy at the early game. I think late game, I think every faction kind of blossoms into a good economy, but I think early game, I think, should be mentioned as well. And the late game is probably, you know, it is a factor, you should consider it, but I tend to just do the roster as a whole, the price of units, the price of upkeep is a big faction. The play style, I've tried to keep neutral, but I have mentioned it so that you guys know. I mean, most of you guys have already played it, but for people that haven't, the sort of play style for each faction and how it counters your natural enemy, I think is important. Where they are on the map, is it a custom battle map heavy region, or is it more sort of further away, like Khand or Ered Luin, for example? And things like that. I might have missed the odd criteria as we go along, but I think I've I've hit the nail on the head for the basics, so I think we should be okay. But we are going to start with the Adunaim. Now the Adunaim, every faction will be the long campaign victory conditions. Just thought I'd mention that as well. The Adunaim has to hold 48 regions for its victory conditions. You have to hold the Plains of Origin, the Pelennor Fields, Lake Evendim, and the North Downs. You must destroy the factions of Gondor, Dol Amroth, Rangers of the North, /Arnor, /Reunited Kingdom, and Mordor. The Adunaim, for me, I like the Adunaim from a personal point of view. I think they have the conscription recruitment setup system, which I think is brilliant. I know it does damage your public order, but I think the money it brings in as well, and some of the units you can get from it are absolutely fantastic, especially when you upgrade that building. I do think is a definite positive for the Adunaim. Its core roster does lack cavalry. Me personally, I like to play with cavalry. Just I think it complements a good army. Although I do quite like playing as a dwarf who don't really have it, but you get what I mean. On the whole, I would choose cavalry if I had the option. I think in AGO, I think the Adunaim have had a fantastic facelift from standard DAC, especially some of the non-Adunaim, the conscription units. The Northguard, for example, I think is an absolutely fantastic unit as the Adunaim sort of arm. I think it looks brilliant. The Adunaim for me, I think the economy is brilliant. They have some nice custom generals. The standard general as well now does have armor piercing and it is anti-cav, so it has double whammy, which is quite rare nowadays. And they tend to pick one or the other, don't they? And the most important thing with the Adunaim is the replayability. You get to move. You can play from Umbar. You can sail up to Dol Amroth. You can sail up to Osgiliath. You can march to Mordor itself if you want, like Gawain did. You can sail up to Tharbad, which is that's like a quite common starting point. You can sail to the Grey Havens. I've tried that myself. It's a good starting point. And my personal favourite is actually if you sail up to Khand-Dum and you attack Angmar, hit Angsul, Khand-Dum, and Litash if you can at the same time. Siege them out. Bosh. Nice start of the campaign. Good start is Angmar. I have also sailed up to, well, cheat moved up to Bjorn's Halls. I mean, you could kind of argue that you could dismember, maybe. I don't know how you're going to get over that massive. I don't know how you're going to get over the Falls of Rhoros, but hey ho, you can make a story out of it. But I think the replayability for the Adunaim it's arguably its biggest pro. I think the drawbacks, like I said, I think is the limited cav in the early game. They don't have brilliant archers. They've got decent archers, but I think they are more infantry based. So if you are a ranged player, I do think they maybe suffer a little bit from that. But they have very few cons. I can't lie. For me, the Adunaim, I'm going to have to put them in second breakfast tier. It's the replayability for me that gives them that spot. I think they deserve it. You can play at least 10, 15 playthroughs of the Adunaim, and you could have 10, 15 experiences. So I think the Adunaim, on the whole, conscription, its replayability, the new general that AGO have put in, the sort of standard bodyguard general, I think they have to go in the top tier. I'd be doing them a disservice if I didn't. We're going to be moving on to Angmar, the Witch Realm of Angmar, formerly known as the Remnants of Angmar. Angmar start with 3 regions up in the Old Witch Realm, top end of Arnor. To win long victory conditions, you must hold 32 regions, which include your heartland of the Old Witch Realm, and Lake Evendim, North Downs, in the Hidden Valley. You also have to destroy the ranges of the North, /Arnor, /Reunited Kingdom, Bree, and the High Elves. For me, Angmar, I think, are a good, well-rounded faction. I do think they struggle a little bit with anti-cav, a little bit. They do have some good wargs, or wargs, depends how you pronounce it. They do have some decent wargs. I think wargs is a better. I'm gonna say warg. Yeah, warg, not wargs. I think they have some decent wargs. I like the sort of orc / human sort of like uneasy sort of alliance, like working together, but I bet they're both thinking about killing each other at the same time in the same army. So I like that aspect of Angmar. They have some decent sort of units. I think the Northguard's a brilliant unit, like I said, for the Adunaim. The Dark Blade are a good unit. The Halbert unit, I think the late game one is a good unit. I think the Bodyguard, the Witch Knights, I think they are a pretty decent bodyguard as a general bodyguard. You can get the Snow Trolls as well from Bruinost, maybe. If I'm wrong with anything, please put it in the comments. But you can recruit Snow Trolls. I know you can do that. You get the Witch King if you take over certain factions, which AGO now is good because if you click your mission, it tells you what you need to do to get certain things. Where if you are like me and you forget a lot, it's handy. So you can click on that, tell you what you're supposed to be doing. You can get the Barrow-wights as well. Barrow-wights are a nice unit. I think they're on Pearson now as well. I could be wrong, but they look brilliant. I think they've just got better and better as they've improved the sort of unit model. And the Northguard for me is arguably one of the best units in the game. As a something to look at. I think they're brilliant. Drawbacks of Angmar. I think if you are an average DAC/AGO player, I think they are it's a difficult start. I think it's a bit not spoken about so much, but I think Angmar is quite a difficult faction to play as in the early game, trying to sort of expand where your economy's not brilliant. You don't make a lot of money as Angmar in the early game. You've got some nice custom generals, which I think there's always a price to pay for custom generals. Then they are very expensive. So I think Angmar does have quite a difficult start. For me, the Arnor region as a whole, I think, is a nice region for custom battle maps. Like I say, you get the Witch King if you take over certain settlements. Hopefully, if Ered Luin turn evil, it gives you a nice sort of ally on your western front, with the Snow Orcs being your ally on the eastern front. So you can focus whether you want to go south or whether you want to go east and try and fight. I don't know why you'd bother trying to fight Erebor, but you can definitely move south, fight the Adunaim, fight the High Elves, fight Bree. I know Bree's not much of a enemy but we've got to include them. For me, Angmar, on the whole, I think they're a decent faction. I don't think they are a second breakfast tier, just purely because of I just don't think they have. They're a decent all-round faction, but I just don't think they have that sort of to take it up a notch. Where the Adunaim tends to have Angmar's their best units, and then the whole roster as well. But Angmar, I like Angmar. I think they get a little bit of stick sometimes for the way they've been changed as a more of a human faction. But I think, given where the map is, given who you're fighting against, I think having an evil human faction in that part, I think makes sense for a game's point of view. And the Guardians of Khand are a brilliant unit. One of the best cav units in the game now, I think, aren't they? But I'm gonna put Angmar in the Boromir tier. I don't quite think they're second breakfast tier, but they're not a million mile off. I think with some of the submods that are going to be up and coming, I think Angmar will definitely be top tier. But we're only doing AGO, so I have to judge on what I've seen and played and experienced. So I think Angmar are going to go in the Boromir tier. I might upset some people with that, but put it in the comments section. I want to know if you agree or disagree on any of these. Let me know. I will put each faction as its own chapter, so you can go to each faction if you don't want to listen to a certain one, because I know sometimes that does happen. We will move on to the Anduin Vale. The Anduin Vale does have quite a big starting region. To win, you have to hold 24 regions. You have to hold Bjorn's Woods and the High Pass, formerly known as Goblin Town. You have to destroy Dol Guldur, the Goblins of Moria, and the Snow Orcs of Gundabad. The Anduin Vale is a bit of a difficult one. I think they have a difficult starting point. I know some of the campaigns you'll watch on YouTube with the likes of Filthy Goblin and Malteser, they tend to make it look easy, but I think as an average player, I think the Anduin Vale is quite a difficult start. You're surrounded by 1, 2, 3 natural enemies, potentially 4. So you do have a difficult start. You got some decent economy buildings. The new skin changer unit that they've put on AGO is brilliant, where they change into bears with them. They just throw ballista bolts at people. They killed a full. I watched. I think it was Maltese where his general killed a full unit of spiders with one volley of ballista bolts. So the general's bodyguard now I think is brilliant. I think they're arguably one of the best bodyguards in the game now. I'd say they're an all-rounded faction. You got the pike unit, which they're a pretty decent unit. You've got, I suppose their calves not brilliant, but they are a wildman faction, so you're not going to expect massive, stats for your cav. They've got some nice archers. I think they do have limited armor. They do have limited, say, construction. You can't get huge cities. Your units are available quite frequently, so you don't have to worry so much about that. They're quite cheap as well, so you can field armies with the Anduin Vale, but their units aren't brilliant. I like them as a faction from a personal point of view. I don't think they're amazing. I did a full campaign with the Anduin Vale a while back. I did thoroughly enjoy it, so I can't sit here and say I don't like them. But I think on the whole, like I say, their bodyguards probably do them the best justice. With the changes that Adrian have made, I'm going to put the Anduin Vale in. But the Anduin Vale is a difficult one. I'm going to put them in the meh tier. They're okay, but there's not much replayability with the Anduin Vale. I like the Anduin Vale from a personal point of view, but I have to be headstrong with this tier list. So I have to try and be neutral. I think they're like I say, they have some decent units, but on the whole, I don't think they're the best faction in the game by a mile. So I'm going to put them in the meh tier. We're going to move on to quite an unpopular faction that I've noticed over the past few months, and that is the Men of Bree. The Men of Bree start off with 4 regions. You must hold 24 regions for your victory conditions, and all you have to do is hold the 4 regions you start with, which is the Shire regions and the city of Bree. You just have to destroy Angmar. You have some decent range units with Bree. You've got the Gatekeeper unit. They're okay. Kind of struggling with Bree, to be honest. when you say it out loud, you think, oh, I brought me notes. I'm looking at them and there's not a lot that I can really mention. They are an underdog faction. I think they're probably, along with Enedwaith and Khand, they're probably some of the worst, maybe the Anduin Vale as well, sort of statistical, I don't think that even is a word, but I'm going to say it anyway, faction in the game. I think their units as a whole are quite just pretty poor overall. They do have a script now in AGO, which you can either go evil with side of Isengard, or you can go good and side with the Rages of the North, sort of. But it used to be the sort of the mercenary type script, but now it's more evil and good. So that does give a bit of replayability there. So you can either go to war. I don't know why I'd go to war with the Rangers of the North and the High Elves with Bree. But then I suppose you will peace out with Dunland and maybe Enedwaith. So there is that. You are surrounded by quite a lot of enemies as well as Bree. You've got Dunland in the south, which come for you straight away. Enedwaith are pretty much the same. You'll see Angmar as well. They'll float around the Breeland region for a while. It's quite annoying. But they do have a cavalry general now at the start with the... is it Councilman Andy? Used to have a generic bodyguard, but now he's got the Greenway Riders. So I think that does help massively in the early tier. But apart from that, though, like I say, I've noticed a lot of people don't like Bree, which I think is a little bit of a shame, but they're not the worst. Like I say, your units are okay. I'm trying to be nice here. They're quite frequent. They're relatively inexpensive up until you get to your sort of merchant infantry. Which they're not a bad unit. They are a nice unit, but they're quite expensive. So I would definitely. They're not worth the money that I think they're like over 1,000 gold coins now, and they're not brilliant. The stats overall aren't fantastic, but you do have a good economy. They are one of the best economies in the game. I suppose that does help them, but I like Bree. Is it from a personal point of view? I do quite like Bree, but when you look at their units, look who you're fighting against. The script does help. It does. I'm going to put them in the meh tier. I don't quite think they're Bilbo Scare tier, but they're not a million mile off. They're probably like, if there was a one in between, I would put them in there, but there's not. So I'm going to give them benefit of the doubt. They're going to go in the meh tier. Now we're moving on to the Men of Dale, Kingdom of Dale. Start off with 4 regions. You have to hold 24 regions for your victory conditions, which is just Dale and Lake Town. They're the 2 regions you've got to hold. And you've got to destroy Rhun and Dol Guldur. For me, Dale I like Dale. I really like Dale. I think they are a very well-rounded faction. I mean, you've got some units like the Hearthguard, the Earls, the Barons, the Athala Rangers, the Lake Town Pikes, the Dale Swordmasters. They've got some decent units. Relatively inexpensive for the most part. There is a couple of units that will cost you a lot of money, and they are restricted to where you are on the map. So there's a geographical restriction for your recruitment for that. Your early game is difficult. I found it was very difficult with your economy. You're surrounded by... If Rhun run rampant, Dale can be a ball ache as a campaign to play. If Mordor somehow, and I've seen it happen, get up to Rhun, that's it. It's you're just fighting hordes and hordes and hordes of great beasts, and it gets pretty dull at that point. But if you can get down to Rhun at a natural sort of progression, take your castles early. I think it is a fun campaign to play. You got the Dwarven and the Elven sort of units to sort of complement your faction as well. You don't get many, but they are there. They're a bit of a difficult one as Dale. I like Dale, but I think the early restriction with their economy, I think, doesn't help. You have to be very, very tactical in who you attack and when you attack and how you attack with what you've got. They've got some nice some nice custom bodyguards now, with thanks to AGO. The sort of standard bodyguard is a decent range bodyguard. The anti-cav as well, which is always helpful. So they do help when you're fighting Camille the Eastern or some of the Lokanasrim. I'm going to put Dale I'm going to put them in the Boromir tier. I don't think they're quite second breakfast. I think with a couple of tweaks. I'm trying not to mention other submods because I want to keep it AGO based, but I think the SUS submod, that's the submod unite all submods. I think what they're doing with Dale, I think definitely puts them in the same tier as the Adunaim. But I think current AGO, which is what I play on YouTube mostly, I have to go with the brain, and I think that's telling me bottom. My heart's saying second breakfast, but I think like I say, the early economy issues you get, I think it takes them down a notch. I think you have to go in the Boromir tier. I feel bad for putting them there because I like Dale, but I've got to be neutral. So that's me being neutral. What we got next? We've got Dol Amroth. They start off, I believe it is 4 regions. Dol Amroth must hold 24 regions for their victory conditions. You just have to hold the Dol Amroth region. But you only have to destroy now Dol Amroth and... sorry, what am I about? You only have to destroy the Adunaim and Mordor. Dol Amroth, for me, I think they've got some very nice units. The Knights of the Silver Swan, the Royal Swan Guard, the Haven Guard, the Nimrodil Mariners. You get the idea. The Seaward Speedmen. Seaward Speedmen are actually a really nice unit to look at. They're very expensive, and your recruitment time's slow now. It's not Dol Amroth has an elven type recruitment feel for me. I know they're not quite as slow, but it has that feel. It's a very difficult start for the Harad, for Dol Amroth. You're fighting the Adunaim. I don't know why I keep on saying the Adunaim for. You're fighting Harad. You're fighting Khand. It can be difficult. If you can rush them, maybe regicide Harad, maybe regicide the Adunaim, you've got a chance. But Dol Amroth, I think, is a campaign where I think you have to be quite a good player to play them at a slow pace. I think for the average player like myself, tend to when I play as Dol Amroth, I tend to rush, try and regicide the factions, like I say, and then you can sort of build from there. You've got a really crap ally in Gondor because they always get their ass handed to them, which is something you should always take into consideration when you're playing AGO. They've got some brilliant cav though. The cav does Dol Amroth, it does them the best, I think. It is their biggest sort of, I don't know what you call it. It is their biggest pro, definitely. Their economy's decent, but you have to get used to playing as them. You have to be tactical in where you go, what you build, who you recruit. They have some good naval units, I suppose. But they're not as good as the Adunaim for the naval. So you're always going to lose that battle if they get more than you. So, you have to get on top of it early. For me, Dol Amroth, just love Lord Imrahil so much. He's wanted me to put them in the top tier, but I just don't think they are. I do think they should be their own faction. I think early days of DAC, when they were part of Gondor, I think it was a nice change to have them as their separate faction. I think AGO have done good things with Dol Amroth. I can't put them in the same tier as Bree and Anduin Vale. I'm going to put them in the Boromir tier. I think they deserve that. I don't think they're a brilliant faction. They have some brilliant units, but I think there's a few drawbacks, like I say. And it is a difficult faction to play. But you could play Dol Amroth different ways, so the replayability is there. I'm going to stick with Boromir. They're going to be in the Boromir tier. Who have we got next? Dol Guldur. Dol Guldur start with one region, which is Dol Guldur, or Amon Lang, whichever one you want to call it. You have to hold 32 regions for your victory conditions, and they must be Dol Guldur itself and Lothlorien, Arascalathon. And you have to destroy the Anduin Vale, the Woodland Realm, and Lothlorien. For me, Dol Guldur, you get the Nazgul at the start, which is always handy. Nice little bit of lore that they've put in themselves, which I think is good. I like it. They've got some nice range units. Got some pretty good jav units with the poisoned arrows and the poisoned javelins and things like that. They've got the Castellan unit, which is a very nice late game elite infantry unit. You haven't got much in the way of cav. Your wargs are quite basic. I do think they have a missile cav unit. I can't remember the name of it. They're okay. They're pretty decent. Your economy's not brilliant, but it's never going to be as an evil faction. But your units overall are they're just a bit average. There's no real, like I say, I've mentioned the standout ones, and that's about it. You do have a brilliant faction leader in Camille the Easterling, who can pretty much win you the early game on his own. Just have a crap unit as bait and just use Camille to hit whatever you're fighting. So he does put them up a lot. And it is quite a difficult campaign to play. I think when you're not playing as Dol Guldur seem like a really strong enemy. When you're playing as them, it's quite difficult. You are surrounded by 2 natural enemies, 3, 4, just a little bit later on in the game. 5 if Gondor do well, but that never happens. For me, Dol Guldur, you've got plenty of units. They're not expensive. They're fairly frequent. They've got some good generals. Like I say, I like the Nazgul script and things like that. It's a difficult one. I'm going to put Dol Guldur in the... What am I going to do? What am I going to do with you, Dol Guldur? I'm going to put you in the meh tier. I think they're just not quite as good as the ones above them. I think that's probably fair. I'm going to not talk about Dol Guldur anymore because I might change my mind and put them in the one above. So we're going to move on to the Vale of Dorwinion. Start off with 4 regions, and you just have to hold Dorwinion, really. That's your victory conditions. You got to destroy Rhun. That's basically the main part of your campaign, is fighting Rhun. You have the elf-human script, which has been changed for AGO. I think they've made a nice improvement on it. They've got some fantastic units, both like statistical-wise and look-wise. They've got some nice units. Economy's also brilliant if you can get it going. If you take Rhun and you hold the Sea of Rhun, you're in the money. You're making like 15-20 grand a turn at some, with the sea trade. So they're a well-rounded faction. The units, if you pick the Elven choice, are quite slow. For me, I think the human choice is a better choice to make. The units aren't that inferior to the Elven ones, but you get armor piercing units, which is always handy. You get a nice cav unit as well. I think, but like I say, the replayability is there for Dorwinion. Lore-wise, they are quite stretched. I mean, they took 2 sentences or whatever and made it into a faction. So I suppose if you're a purist, maybe Dorwinion isn't a particularly good faction for you. But if you're like me, I've played as Dorwinion on YouTube. I like them when I'm not putting it on YouTube. They're a good faction to play as. They've got very few drawbacks. I think the only sort of drawback is probably the lack of decent cav if you pick elves, but if you pick the human choice, then I think you're in for a good time. The replayability is there. They've got a good bodyguard unit as well in the High Paladins. I think they're a good unit. They look nice. They kind of look a bit like a pink tree, like a pink Christmas tree. But they look cool. I'm going to put Dorwinion I'm going to put them in the Boromir tier. They're not... Oh, the second breakfast tier. No, do you know what? Stuff it. I'm gonna make a change. I'm gonna put Dorwinion in the second breakfast tier. I think they deserve it. There's no real major drawbacks to playing as Dorwinion, so I think second breakfast tier. I'm gonna stick with that. We're gonna move on. Here we are. We are at Dunland. If you watch the channel, I am a big fan of Dunland, but I have to be honest. So I'm going to try and be as neutral as possible. They start off with 5 regions now in AGO. They've done some fantastic changes to AGO. 100%. They've done really well. They've definitely fleshed them out a lot because they were a tiny bit stale. I'm not hating on Dunland, by the way. Well, no, try not to. You have to hold 24 regions, which is all of, your Heartland and Edoras, Eastfold, the Westfold, Helm's Deep. Gets you have to destroy Rohan. That's what you got to destroy. They have some nice armor piercing units. Like I said before, the AGO uplift, I think, it was needed. Some people would argue, like, getting rid of... What unit did they get rid of? Well, sorry, they've introduced the sort of upgrades to the Wolf's Pikes. They've changed the name. They've put the sexy Thong units in. It's not called Thong, it's Throng, Orband, or whatever they're called. Which are a good anti-cav unit, and they're very cheap in it. Readily available. They've got a decent bodyguard. The Dunland bodyguard, they're not bad. Armor piercing, I think they've got an attack of 8, charge of 10, something like that. They've got a decent bodyguard. Your late game units aren't brilliant. Your construction is limited. You can't build up to the highest tier. You don't have any real range. You've got the Beast Slayers, which I know they've changed them to. Is it Huntmasters? Nice little upgrade. They do the same job as the previous one, but it's a difficult one. They've got, like I said, they've got some good anti-cav. You've got a brilliant ally in Isengard, so you can always rely on them to kick Rohan's ass for you. But then again, with them introducing the 2 extra regions you get at the beginning of the game, it gives you the ability to fight Rohan early on, where in standard DAC you were pushed further north. So by the time you got down to Isengard, they've already taken most of Rohan anyway. So for me, my heart wants to put Dunland above Second Breakfast, but I can't do that. I'd cause an absolute uproar. Dunland, for me, on the whole, they are a pretty... When you look at them on paper and when you play as them, they're quite... I think what Erebor have done... Erebor have done a lot of good. I think if it was standard DAC, I would put Dunland in the Bilbo Scare tier. But I'm going to put them in the Meh tier. I think the main reason for that is the improvements that Erebor have made to Dunland. Like I say, if it was standard DAC, Dunland would definitely be in the Bilbo Scare tier. But I'm trying to be neutral here, so it's I'm going to put them in the Meh tier, and we're going to move on. Next on the list is the Dwarves of Ered Luin. Start off with 3 regions. You must hold 24 regions, including your Heartland, Thorin's Halls, and the Mountain of Gundabad. They're probably considered the weakest Dwarven faction in the community. I struggle sometimes to see where... I kind of get where they come from in a way, but they have some brilliant units, like the Broadbeam Marksmen are a fantastic unit. Phalanx, they're a good unit. They'll hold the line forever and a day. You've got your Siege, as everyone knows, Dwarves are brilliant with Siege. Nice economy, if you can get the mines up and running, if you can take Buzz Doom. You're making money for days. The ring script is good. It's a nice touch. It makes your players neutral, so you don't have to be good, you don't have to be evil. You can be like my current YouTube campaign with Ered Luin. It's just I just hate everybody. So you can pick which route you want to go down, which I do think helps them with the replayability. But the Dwarves always suffer from lack of cav. The roster isn't massive. Which I do think sometimes, like I say, that sort of freshness does kind of, they don't have a huge roster. I'm going to put Ered Luin in the... I'm going to put them in the Boromir tier. Yeah, I'm going to put them in the Boromir tier. I think that's fair. Now, we're moving on to Clans of Enedwaith. I think this is now known as Enedwaith. They were Clans of Enedwaith. Enedwaith have a split start for their realm. You have to hold 32 regions, which include Alkford. That's a bit. They are another neutral faction, which I do think helps them. They have the restricted building. Their armor isn't brilliant. Got some decent Jav units. They've got chariots if you like chariots. The script to unite the clans is okay. Clan moot sort of thing, it's okay. They have some decent economy buildings, which is the fishery building. You can upgrade that. You can make some good money, especially on your coastal regions. You got some decent... Like, you're not bad on the seas, but you're not brilliant. You're better than the people around you, I suppose. Not the high elves. But yeah, Enedwaith for me, I've never been a big fan of Enedwaith. They have some okay units, but I think the replayability helps it. You don't have to be good, you can be evil, so I think that choice always helps. I'm gonna put Enedwaith. What should I do with Enedwaith? I think the playstyle does make your choice a lot more difficult, because if you like, for me, I don't play with Jav units. I just don't like them. I don't like chariots neither, and that's their 2 main sort of vocal points. I'm gonna put Enedwaith in. I'm gonna put them in the Bilbo Scare tier. I don't think they're quite tomato scene tier, but if you were asking me for my personal opinion, I would definitely put them in tomato scene. But I'm trying to be a bit more neutral, so I'm gonna let them off the hook a little bit, and I'm gonna put them in the Bilbo Scare tier. which I think is very fair because I have slandered Enedwaith in pretty much every single video I've ever done on YouTube. So I think by not putting them in the bottom tier, I think is probably fair. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. Moving on to the Dwarves of Erebor. 2 starting regions. You must hold Erebor and the Dwarven sort of birthplace, which is Gundabad. You have to destroy Rhun, the Goblins of Moria, and the Snow Orcs, or Orcs of Gundabad. They've got some good armor-piercing units, got some brilliant armor-piercing units. The Axgard of Erebor is a fantastic unit. If you can put them on a bridge battle against trolls, honestly, it's brilliant. Siege, as always, you know the score. Good siege. Nice economy. You've got some good economy buildings. You've got the Hall of Seven building, or as it calls it, the Orcani clan hall, sorry. Does help them. Nice to flesh out that roster, because they do have, I think all Dwarven factions tend to have quite small rosters, so I do think that helps a bit. Like the Iron Fist Hammers are a brilliant unit, but I know they're not, so, you know. But the late game, if Rhun run riot and you don't get down in time, it's a ball ache. It is an absolute ball ache. You're fighting Cav, you're fighting faster units, you're fighting range units. You don't have any dedicated range, really. Like I say, you get the Stiff Beard Archers, I think, and the Blacklock Engineers from the Orcani building, but I mean, that's about it. So that doesn't help Erebor. I like Erebor, they're okay. I've played them on a submod, well, on SUS. A while back, I played them on AGO a while back as well. I think Erebor probably's. They're probably. I'm gonna put them in the Boromir tier. I think they're not the worst Dwarven faction, in my opinion. I think they've got an overall decent roster. I don't think there's any truly, really, there's no real downsides to Erebor. They do struggle a bit from They do struggle a bit from the lack of range. I do think that doesn't help them. But on the whole, I think they're okay. I'm gonna put them. No, they're a decent faction. I'm being a bit mean now. I'm gonna put them in the Boromir tier. So, next on the agenda is the Gobors, or commonly known as the Goblins of Moria. You hold 3 starting regions, and you've got to hold them 3 starting regions for your victory conditions, but you have to have 32 to gain victory. It does have a neutral playstyle. I think AGO again, I think they've done a lot of good things with Goblins of Moria as a faction. Standard DAC, the Goblins of Moria would be their own rating is just horrendous. But I quite like the Goblins of Moria. They are actually quite good to play as. You've got the Azog Defiler unit as a good unit. Mountain Uruks, the Flame Wranglers, the Sauron's Will that they've added thanks to AGO. The Ologhai you can get as well. The Bodyguard now is mounted Bodyguard. But your standard units are shocking. If you haven't got a general, you're knackered. They're gonna rout. You're very much a horde faction. You know, you're just throwing snagger units at people and hoping something sticks. Your economy isn't brilliant, but you do hold financial buildings in High Pass and Khazad-Dum East. So I suppose you do have that. AGO now has put some custom bodyguards in for Goblins of Moria as well. I do think that helps. But for me, I have to be honest and I have to be truthful. I think the Goblins of Moria are, I think Bilbo's scared here. I think standard DAC, they would be bottom of the bottom. Closer you can get, I think they'd be crap. But now that they've got some nice upgrades, I think they've bumped them up a little bit, but not massively. they're not a popular faction. But I do think, like I said, they have some decent moments. But on the whole, then they're not a brilliant faction to to play as. But some people like it. I quite enjoy playing as Goblins of Moria personally, but you know, I have to try and be neutral. So I think Bilbo's Scarety is about right. We're moving on to the Kingdom of Gondor, the Stewardship of Gondor. Biggest starting faction in the game. You've got to hold 40 regions, which includes your Heartland regions. You don't have to hold. I mean, you have to destroy Mordor, so you have, but you don't have to hit the. It doesn't really make sense, does it, when you got to hold certain regions? But you got to destroy Mordor and the Adunaim and Dol Guldur, which is different. I think adding Dol Guldur in the mix makes it even more difficult. They've got some brilliant units, nice amount of custom bodyguards. The standard bodyguard for Gondor is so underrated, it's criminal. I would implore anybody, play as Gondor, use your standard bodyguards. They're a brilliant unit. They're shit against armor piercing units, I will give you that, but they are a good unit. And Denethor is a brilliant general. I know he's got the standard bodyguard, but use him. He's brilliant. You've got some good range units in your Arthurian Rangers. They do help you out massively. And the Blackroot Vale Archers are a good unit as well. For me, Gondor, they have quite a few different play styles. You can either rush, like what I did. You can general stack, again, what I did. You can play a lot more defensive and hold Kyrandros and Osgiliath and just hold there for as long as possible. That's a more lore accurate play style. You can have a sort of a steady playthrough where you can sort of push up towards the Black Gate and take the sort of regions north and south of Arthurian. They have quite a bit of replayability. Plenty of units to choose from. You get a nice little supplement from Dol Amroth as well. You get the units from the Amrothian Barracks building. I think in Minas Tirith as well. I think you can build it there. So you get them in a few locations, which is always nice. Good economy. Good on the seas. Good on trade. Decent mines in Calenhad. You can take a Gestalad. They've got some good ones there. I think it's Ethring as well. Could be wrong. They've got some good regions. Longallen makes a lot of money from sea trade. There's Pelagia. They make a lot of, you can make a lot of money as Gondor. I'm going to put Gondor in. It's got to be fitting. I've got to put them in the Boromir tier. I think the constant fighting of Mordor, I think, gets quite tedious for a lot of people. And you are definitely up against it. I think Gondor is a very difficult campaign to play as. I've certainly struggled a lot with it when I've played as them. But I think on the whole, I think they are probably... I think it's one of the hardest campaigns to start as, really. I think with that, I think that doesn't put them on the second breakfast tier. I think they're suiting in the Boromir tier. But we are going to advance to the Snow Orcs, or the Orcs of Gundabad. You only hold one region, which is Gundabad itself. You must hold 32 regions, including Gundabad and Erebor, and you just have to destroy all Dwarven factions. I say just, that's a lot of work. Quite a controversial faction, lore-wise. I know a lot of people are very critical of the Snow Orcs as a faction. Personally, I don't mind them. They're not horrendous, like in lore-breaking wise, personally. I mean, I suppose they were a nice addition. I think that is probably the nicest way of... I think that's the best, like, nicest I could say regarding Gundabad. You've got some good range units, which is quite uncommon for sort of... You are the beefy Snow Orcs. That's why I always call them. I always call them the beefy Orcs, beefy Snow Orcs. They are beefy. By far and away the strongest Orc faction, excluding Uruk-hai, on the game. You got some good armor piercing units. You have quite a nice script with the Dwarven scavenged armor, which I do think is good. You have the Orc recruitment system, subjugation thing, where you can recruit lesser Orcs. You got some decent economy. The economy isn't too bad, I've felt, when I've played the Snow Orcs. I'm going to put the Snow Orcs in the meh category. I think my main sort of feeling for that is, I think the lore-wise, I don't think helps them a lot. They do have some good Uber units, and they do kind of hold up against pretty much any faction, but I think the subjugation thing, again, it's okay. But I think the Snow Orcs, it's quite a sort of standard playthrough. You're just fighting the dwarves. Got to kill the dwarves. Got to take a bit of Anduin Vale, fight the dwarves. That's it. So I think bottom mid tier for me. I think that's probably fair. Who have we got next? Oh, the High Elves. High Elves. The split realm at the start, as you all know. You start with Imladris and then all the way over the Grey Havens. You got to hold 24 regions to gain your victory. You got to hold Imladris, the Grey Havens, and Eregion. Ostenthal. You got to destroy Mordor, which, I don't know, takes a long time, that. The Goblins of Moria and the Remnants, or the Witch Realm of Angmar. For me, the High Elves, very expensive units, very slow. It's an elven faction, you're always going to get that. The units are the best in the game. You're the best at everything, but it comes at a price, and it definitely comes at a weird time. You got some nice custom generals, like I say. You get Glorfindel comes back, doesn't he? You got Círdan. You got the twins. There's the other guy. His name's completely escaped me. You know the guy I'm on about. We start halfway across. You can either send him east or west. It is a very long campaign. If you want to play High Elves and you want to destroy Mordor, that is a long campaign. But the Eregion script is nice. The unit you get for completing it is nice. The choice of barracks is good. For me, the High Elves, it's such a lot. If you was to play the campaign and try and defeat Mordor, it's going to take ages. It's going to take absolutely ages. Your units, like I say, units are the best in the game. You're the best at everything. You got the best pikes, best cav, the best archers. You got the best custom bodyguard. You're the best, but sometimes the best is kind of a bit, meh. I can't put the High Elves. Can I put the High Elves in meh? They're probably the High Elves. They're not my favorite elven faction, but they're not. Yeah, I'm gonna put them in. Oh, I'm gonna get a lot of stick, but I'm gonna put them in the meh region. I think they're okay, but there's a lot of drawbacks to the High Elves, which I just don't think helps them. They're not, like I say, they're not a bad faction, but just it's quite a difficult campaign as well, and I think that should take them in consideration. So I'm gonna put them in the meh. Moving on to Isengard. Isengard now holds 2 regions as opposed to 1 for AGO. The Fangorn Forest region has been added, which I think is a nice addition. You got to hold 40 regions, so it's quite a long campaign. You got to hold Edoras and Helm's Deep, so guess who you're fighting? Rohan. Gondor. The Rangers of the North / Reunited Kingdom / Arnor. And Mordor. Isengard, for me, you are a true neutral. You pick and choose who you want to be friends with and who you want to fight. I really like Isengard, I can't lie. Oh, Dr. Pepper's nice. You've got good anti-cav to fight Rohan. You've got armor piercing to fight pretty much anybody. You've got strong late game units with your Uruk-hai. Nice script if you get the ring. Nice script once you've upgraded your barracks. I like how AGO has done what they've done with the recruitment and how you have to improve Fangorn, but there's a price to pay when you upgrade Fangorn. I like it. They've done a lot of good stuff. I love it. Your bodyguard's pretty decent as well on the whole. You got some nice custom bodyguards with Lurtz and Saruman. Got to get them out in the field. I know I get generals killed all the time, but you got to get them out in the field. You got good armor. You make some good money in the economy. Your carv's not brilliant, but Isengard for me is a no-brainer. They're second breakfast tier for me. I think Isengard are by far and away the best evil faction, quote marks, in the game. Best orc evil faction. I like Isengard. I think a lot of people like Isengard as well. I don't think I'll get much hate for the Isengard decision. I might. I mean, you know, if that's how you feel, then that's how you feel. I'm not going to knock it. I'd rather you told me. Put it in the comment section. Who have we got next? Dwarves of Khazad-Dum. Start as a horde, same as our Adunaim. You got to hold 24 regions, which is both Khazad-Dums and Gundabad, because you're a dwarf. You got to destroy the Goblins of Moria and the Snow Orcs. You got a brilliant economy. You got the best pike unit in the game, the First Legion. Your siege is always good. You can hold out forever and a day with your defensive units. You do get to fight the Balrog as well if you attack Western Moria before they sally out. You do get to fight the Balrog. I don't know if that's a plus or a minus. I mean, personally, I don't think of anything worse, but it is a script thing. And you got the best armor in the game. You got the best economy in the game, arguably. Best mines. I like Khazad-Dum. Probably the least out of the three Dwarven factions. From a personal point of view, I think you've got some good range. But I think on the whole, oh, it's a difficult one. It is a very difficult one. I'm gonna put Khazad-Dum in the Boromir tier. I think for me, I'm not a huge fan of Khazad-Dum as a like, you take Khazad-Dum, you take both Khazad-Dums, your economy is absolute, like it's beefy, and then you just steamroll everybody else. But you do have quite a few. You could decide to go evil. You could fight Lothlorien if you wanted to, and you could go like a neutral evil. So I suppose there is that, which I do think helps them. Like I say, you've got your different choices to get to Moria. I think Boromir is fair. I don't think putting any of the Dwarven factions in Meh, I don't think that's very fair. Although I have put the High Elves there. Who knows? Who knows? We're going to move on to the Variags of Khand. Now, Khand start with 5 regions. Quite an isolated start, though. I think everybody can agree with that. You go hold 32 regions, including your capital. I have absolutely like no interest in Khand whatsoever. I don't like Missile Cav. I don't like... Yeah, I think your script to pick a side, whether you're going to go with the Blue Wizards or you're going to pick with Sauron, I think is okay. You've got a safe start at the beginning, so you can mop up the rebel regions if you like. Your bodyguard's okay. Don't mind them. The Variag Nobles are alright. But for me, Khand, by far and away, the worst faction on the game. I'm going to put them in tomato scene, I'm sorry, but they're just... I don't have really anything positive to say about Khand. Like I said, the only thing that saves them is the script, but for me, I think a lot of the community feels the same. Like, I don't think Khand are a brilliant faction. I think they're arguably one of the worst. So I'm going to stick with it. If anybody hates me, then, I'm sorry. But we're going to put Khand in the tomato scene. Yeah, I can't give them any higher than that. I'm sorry. Who have we got next? We have got Mordor. Big starting domain. It's a long campaign. You've got to hold 64 regions for your victory conditions. You've got to hold your Heartland, Pelennor Field. You've got to go to Lothlorien. And then you've got to go all the way up to Imladris. You've got to destroy Gondor, as you can imagine. Dol Amroth, Rangers of the North / Reunited Kingdom. Lothlorien and the High Elves. Now, Mordor as an enemy is a pain in the arse. Like, I'm not even gonna pretend that they're not. But when you play as them, you've got some good choices. You've got the Great Beasts, which are a pain to fight, but they're good when you have them. Olokai, if you can get them, they're good. Your Temple units, your Dark Numenorians are a nice twist, but they're only available from a couple of regions, I think. Your standard units feel quite horde-like. They're not brilliant. You get a couple of decent ones, but for the most part, they're pretty poor. And if you haven't got a general, you're going to struggle with your morale. You got your Nazgul, which is always nice. If you can get the ring, you get Sauron, which is pretty... I've never actually had Sauron, I can't lie. I never can be asked finding the ring though, to be honest. So I suppose I'm not playing them very well then. You get plenty of starting castles at the beginning. I think you get like 5, I think. You're a very military focused faction. But it is a very long campaign. And I think they have some nice sort of... I think they have some nice supplements to the roster with different faction units coming into Mordor. I do think that helps. I think it was just core sort of orc units from Mordor. For me, they'd be like bottom tier, but the replayability of Mordor is kind of like you just steamroll everybody. That's your objective. It's just steamrolling. For me, I think Mordor are going to go in the meh tier. Some people love Mordor, some people don't. I think they're probably okay on the whole. But your replayability is lacking. Units are a bit, like the core roster is a bit boring. But they do have some nice additions, which I think puts them in the meh tier quite nice. We're going to do, what are we doing now? Rangers of the North / Reunited Kingdom / Arnorth, whatever you want to call them. Have 2-star regions. You got to hold 40 regions, including your Heartland. And you've got to destroy Mordor, Isengard, and Angmar. Now, I like the Reunited Kingdom script. I think it's brilliant. I liked them before they didn't have the Reunited Kingdom. I liked them when they were just Northern Dunedain. You get some good custom bodyguards. You get plenty of money. Your economy's good. You get some good units. Your core units are decent. They're not readily available, which is always shit like. But your Beacon of Hope mercenary thing works well. Your standard bodyguard's decent. You've got Aragorn as a faction leader. I mean, you can't get any better than that. I'm gonna have to put the Rangers of the North / Reunited Kingdom / Arnor. I'm gonna have to put them in second breakfast tier. I think it's unfair if I didn't. I think they deserve to be at the top tier for me. Who we got now? Rhun. I like Rhun. Start off with one region, just Mistrand. You got to hold 32 regions to win. You got to hold Erebor and Dale as well. You got to destroy Gondor, Erebor, Dale, and Dorwinion. They have some fantastic units, especially if you can. Once you upgrade them, they're very nice. Your bodyguard, a decent bodyguard. They got some nice custom ones as well, which you get with the Uniting the Clans sort of script thing that you get with Rhun. If your economy around the sea of Rhun, like I say, if you can get it up and running, it's brilliant. You got some fire arrows. The only faction has fire arrows. Don't know if that gives you a boost, like, but you know. Rhun are a difficult one, really difficult. You got some decent pikes as well. You got some elite cav. I think Rhun, I'm gonna take a risk. I'm gonna put Rhun. I love playing as Rhun. I think a lot of people like Rhun. I'm going to put Rhun in the second breakfast tier. I think they deserve it up there. I think, yeah. I'm happy with that. We're going to move on to the Kingdom of Rohan. Now, Rohan has a big starting domain. You've got to hold 24 regions, which are all just your Heartland regions. You have to destroy Dunland, Mordor, and Isengard. For me, Rohan is arguably the most difficult campaign to play on AGO by a mile. I don't even know what I would... For me, yeah, difficulty for Rohan is definitely at the high, like the top. You do get a pretty decent economy. You got some nice custom battle maps as well at Helm's Deep and Edoras and things like that, especially if you go to Isengard, if you can push up. I think it's pretty decent. Your bodyguard, a decent bodyguard. Mounted bodyguards are always handy. You get some nice custom generals at the beginning, but you got to be careful not to get them killed because they tend to die a lot. But it is a long campaign. You have to destroy Mordor, and you have to destroy Isengard and Dunland. So it's going to be it will be a difficult campaign for you. If you're an average player like myself, it is a challenge. If you're an expert, then it's probably not a challenge. But for me, Rohan, I like them in the books. I think the lore behind them is brilliant. In the films, they're equally as brilliant. in the game, I think the probably's. I do like the Major Cell Door Wards unit. I do think they are a very, very nice unit. But for me, I'm gonna put Rohan. I think everything, like I say, it's quite a sort of standard campaign. Unit arm, they're okay. They haven't got a brilliant roster. I'm gonna put them in. I'm gonna put them in the Bilbo Scare. I'm sorry, really sorry, but I think that's probably where they could maybe go in the Meh tier. Some people put them in the Second Breakfast tier, but I think I have to be truthful to myself. So I think Bilbo Scare tier is about right. Yeah, because I'll top myself and they'll go further up. I think so. I'm gonna take a risk. I'm gonna take it. So please, if you don't like what I've done, please let me know. I would appreciate it. Who have we got now? The Woodland Realm. 2 starting regions. You got to hold 32 for your victory conditions, which is your Thranduil's Halls and Amon Lank. You have to destroy Dol Guldur and Mordor. Now, for me, the Woodland Realm, you've got the recruitment a dilemma. They take ages. They're expensive. You get the script now to join with Lothlorien, but if you was to just put it as a normal campaign, it is a very difficult campaign. You've got a pretty crap economy as well. Like, it takes ages for you to build up big armies. You're not going to get big armies with Elven factions anyway, but I think Woodland Realm's probably the worst for that. They've got some brilliant archers though. Don't have much in the way of cav. You get Legolas with his unlimited quiver. I mean, he doesn't. He has so many arrows, but in the film he just yeets them. Thranduil's a good general. You've got Hobbit-inspired units, which look pretty cool. You can get the Ents. They're there. It takes 8, like I say. Woodland Realm is a difficult game. It's a difficult campaign. If you're an absolute master at economy, it's probably not too bad for us average players. I think if it was going economy, I'd put them in Tomato Scene, but I don't think I can put the Woodland Realm in that. I'm going to put them in the Bilbo Scare tier. I think they're not, for me, they're the worst Elven faction on the game by quite considerable amount as well. I think the script helps, but yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I think the Bilbo Scare tier is about right. Now you're wondering why Harad and Lothlorien are there. Well, when I did the icons earlier on today, I didn't realise that they were going to be in alphabetical order, and then I forgot that Harad and Lothlorien existed. So I had to put them in at the last minute. Well, we're going to move on to Harad. You start off with just the Finable region. You've got to hold 32 regions to win, which include the Haruzen, the Benin, and Dor, and Ernal regions. And you've got to destroy Gondor and Dol Amroth. For me, Harad are a decent faction. I like playing as them. I do like playing as Harad. Pretty well rounded on the whole, I would say. You do struggle with good armor units. You don't really have any. You're quite a bit of a sort of like a cavern, like cav faction, probably. You do have some pikes though. They do help. Your bodyguard's good. You don't have any custom bodyguards. You get the Mumma Kill if you can recruit them. Your Trollmen units are brilliant. I do like the Trollmen units. The United Tribe script always helps. I like being rewarded for taking certain regions. But it can be difficult if Khand turn good. If Khand stay evil, it's a bit of a piece of piss. But if they turn evil, you have to be careful. You have to go for the Adunaim, in my opinion. You have to go for them quite early as well. Get your economy sorted, then go towards the Adunaim, because they can't stop your cav. You're okay. You don't have much armor piercing though. I do think that is probably its biggest drawback. But you do have a good economy, especially in the late game. You make a lot of money as Harad. You're a pretty decent naval trade faction as well. Yeah, Harad are a bit of a difficult one. If it was personal, I would put them in Second Breakfast. I think they're a fantastic faction to play as. But on the whole, I think they're probably... A lot of people might not like playing as Harad, because it's quite a sort of isolated start. You're not really in where the action is. You have to sort of build your way up. I think they're a mid-tier faction. I think Meh is about right. It hurts me to put them there, but yeah, can't just be putting everybody in the top tier. We're very much of a tier list, so I just put everybody in the top tier. Who we got? We got the last one. Last but not least, certainly not least, is the realm of Lothlorien. Lothlorien starts with 2 regions. You've got to hold 24 regions for your victory conditions, which is Lothlorien and Amon Lank. And you've got to destroy Dol Guldur and Mordor, which destroying Mordor is never a good victory condition. For me, I really like Lothlorien. From a neutral point of view, I think they struggle a little bit with the sort of unit recruitment dilemma. It's always a pain with elven factions. I like the March Warden script where you get generals for taking so many regions. I like how you can join with Woodland Realm. Got some brilliant custom generals as well. You're arguably one of the best defensive factions in the game. But you've got limited armor piercing. Don't have much anti-cav. Sorry, you don't have much cav, but you have brilliant anti-cav. And you have some good late game economy, I can't lie. Lothlorien for me, I like them. I'm certainly a Lothlorien fan. But I think they're the best elven faction to play as on the game. But to destroy Mordor, it's always a pain. But I think with the script that they've got now, I think Lothlorien, I think they're probably... I'm gonna put them in the second breakfast tier. I'm gonna take a risk. I think that's probably about right. I don't have any negative things to say about Lothlorien. Like I say, you haven't got much cav, but and armor piercing's a bit of a pain, but they've got some brilliant units. And all the units look fantastic as well, inspired from the film. I think that definitely helps. But no, I'm gonna keep with second breakfast. And that is my AGO faction tier list from top to bottom. If you disagree with anything that I've put or I've said, please let me know, because I would like to know. I'm always up for a discussion. I've tried to keep neutral about it, like Dunland being in the meh. I think that is the definition of me being neutral. If you've got if I've said something that you don't agree with, or if you do agree with me, please let me know. Put it in the comments section. Hopefully we'll get some more tier lists done in the future, maybe with some units or something like that. But I think I'm happy with that. That doesn't look too bad. And this video will be going up on Saturday. We'll have some more campaign videos next week. And I will see you guys on the next one.